Hello and a warm welcome to this edition of Business Africa. I'm your host, Afolake Onyiloye. The top stories this week. African countries are desperately looking for financial resources to mitigate the effect of climate change. As developed countries fail to deliver on their pledges, what innovative financing solutions can the continent adopt? Hops is an ingredient in every beer on the African continent. The Southern Cape, which grows nearly all the hops in the Southern Africa, is on the threat of climate change effect. A computer engineer has turned to green agriculture for solutions. And the World Bank report has found that it costs 5.3 times more to transport goods in Nigeria than in the United States. Transporters blame poor infrastructure and insecurity for this absurd state of affairs. The Indian delegation's argument at COP26 to balance mitigation of climate change effect against other development needs like poverty eradication aptly captures the predicament many African countries face. Pledges of financial resources like the $100 billion made in 2009 are yet to be fulfilled, which means African nations must be ready to finance and manage their own survival against the climate change doomsday. Let's explore one of the ways this can be done.
Glasgow Climate Pact, which is the final agreement from COP26, has been praised for being the first ever climate deal to directly address the issue of coal, the worst fossil fuel or cause of greenhouse gases. The deal also pledged more money to help developing countries adapt to the devastating impact of climate change. Having failed to mobilize $100 billion pledged by developed nations in 2009, COP26 has made an even more ambitious commitment. That's to raise $500 billion by 2025. The money is intended to help emerging economies, including those in Africa, transition to clean energy. As scientists predict an increase in weather vagaries and natural calamities like severe flooding due to climate change, poorer nations insist that the richer nations who are responsible for more carbon emissions should finance adaptation to the effect of climate change. African countries have, however, been urged to urgently find their own adaptation means, considering that pledges like $100 billion from 2009 are yet to be fulfilled. With the goal of limiting temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, it's a race against time for planet Earth to avoid the most extreme effects of climate change.
We speak to Ibrahim Sheikh Diang, Director General of African Risk Capacity Group of the African Union. He's also UN Assistant Secretary General. Welcome to the show. Considering how slow African development partners have been in delivering on their commitment in the fight against climate change effects, what self-sustaining options are available for African countries?
Well, first of all, considering the fact that Africa does not contribute to the global warming as the rest of the developed world, there's still responsibility of developed countries to provide the funding they promised in the Paris Accord. That promise was not kept by 2020, which is $100 billion annually. And in Glasgow, there's some renewed commitment that has been made to actually provide additional funding by 2025. So hopefully that commitment will be met. In the meantime, the Africans themselves have to take responsibility in dealing with the impact of climate change, particularly in vulnerable communities, so that we actually protect the life and livelihood of many Africans across the board. And that's why an organization like mine is a testimony of the African leadership by creating an organization entirely dedicated in dealing with the effect of climate change so we can respond appropriately.
Now, how can African countries implement an innovative financing solution in terms of insurance against climate change or against health emergencies?
Well, first of all, let's recognize that at the COP26, and this is a major breakthrough for Africans, it's been recognized the importance of loss and damages. In this case, the problem that we're faced with as a continent is the impact it has on food security, communities selling their assets to survive. So something needs to be done. And we got three ways of innovating. Number one, by helping the Africans to plan properly and understanding their exposure to climate change so they can take the informed decision, either as a government or other institution that deal with the impact of climate change. I think second, it's the planning process whereby African government themselves can develop what we call contingency planning, so that when there is a disaster, they can actually respond appropriately. And I think third, that's where the insurance comes in, when the government decide to transfer the risk to the insurance market, then they have access to additional funding, which allows them, in the case of disaster, to have resources that allow them to support the life and livelihood of many Africans that are affected by climate change.
The decision taken by Glasgow, is it a welcome decision by African countries, and how can they best use it to their advantage?
Well, let's start with the positive side, and that is that there are a couple of things that are very good for Africa. The fact that loss and damage is being recognized as something important to deal with demonstrate once again that we are thinking about developing countries and Africa in particular as well. I think second, Glasgow also recognized the importance of technological transfer so that Africa can have access to climate technology so we can actually profile our risk. And that's something that's very welcoming for Africans in general. I think third, the fact that capacity building is recognized as an important part of the solution, we will help, obviously, the Africans develop their capacity in dealing with climate change as well. And last but not least, the commitment on financing would also help Africans to get additional funding so that we can actually provide resources for the adaptation fund that Africans require to invest in adaptation. These are all extremely important. Now, obviously, the point which is a bit difficult to swallow for many African countries is the fact that many African countries rely on fossil fuel to develop themselves. So therefore, having to find a balance between using these resources to develop your country and also dealing with the impact of climate change, it's a difficult balance to strike. So hopefully we can learn from other countries as Africans and make sure we can find the right balance to make sure we can develop while we deal with the impact of climate change as well.
Mr. Ibrahim Sheikh Diang, thank you so much for making out time for this interview.
Pleasure is mine.
Every single beer on the African market today contains hops. While hops is one of the 4 main ingredients in beer, global warming poses a serious threat. To cope the challenges created by temperature fluctuation, a computer engineer in Johannesburg might have found a solution. Let's find out more from our correspondent, Wandiswa Ntengeto.
The entire hops industry in South Africa is situated in the Southern Cape. While the area is climatically suited for hops production, global warming poses a serious threat. To cope the challenges posed by temperature fluctuations, a computer engineer and entrepreneur started a hydroponic rooftop farm in the heart of Johannesburg. Hops is one of the 4 main ingredients in beer. Every single beer on the African market today contains hops. While hops is mostly used for beer production, the plant is also used for medicinal purposes.
I set out to create a 4-season hop house. I created a company called Afrileap, and that's what we do here. We provide fresh quality premium hops for supply to the craft brewers, cosmetics, cuisine industries, using hop as an alternative that's locally sourced.
Academics say a lot more investment on research needs to be considered to improve the quality of plants.
Hops is also very delicate plant, very, very delicate. In fact, a 2 to 5 degree increase in temperature can actually alter the phenology of the plant. So that's why I'm not surprised that the production of hops actually is of great concern.
Entrepreneurs like Kaya say South Africa's hops industry will grow more and diversify when government creates policies that support new entrants in the field.
Nigeria may be Africa's biggest economy, but years of insecurity and reliance on road transport are fueling high cost of transporting goods. Transporters say it is cheaper to ship goods from as far as the United States than to move them inside the borders of the vast country. We have more on that report.
Business owners in Nigeria say it costs more to move goods within the country than shipping them from the U.S. According to a recent report from the World Bank, the cost of moving goods per unit distance domestically in Nigeria is about 5.3 times higher than the United States of America. Transport operators say the increase is as a result of the dilapidated infrastructures.
Where I'm paying for 30, now they're asking for 50. So I can't bear it. I have to go back to the office and redesign. Really, the other one, if I come to their own end, there's a reason for that increment.
Business consultant Bright Oboku noted that the hike affects per unit cost of goods sold and impacts on the final consumers.
Effects that we are experiencing in haulage. Number one is the infrastructure. The roads are dilapidated. Second problem is the price increase in diesel. So once there is increase in diesel, it will affect all other parts of the business.
Experts are of the opinion that the consistent increase can be attributed to the weak state of the country's transport infrastructure.
And that's a wrap for Business Africa this week. We have more business news and powerful stories of entrepreneurs on our various platforms at Africanews and Africanews.com. Thanks for watching and bye for now.